Dear Grace, try something different today. This may or may not be the last episode, I'm not sure yet. Haven't decided. So what I'm going to do, since I bitch so much about the DSM-5, I'm just going to go through 100 random conditions. And talk about them. Number 1, generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Sorry, still no cough button. Excessive worry and anxiety about various topics lasting more than 6 months. Individuals find it difficult to control their worry, leading to physical symptoms like fatigue and irritability. Maybe that's my problem. That's why I have fatigue and irritability. Example: Emily is always worrying about her job, finances, and health, even when there's no immediate reason to. She struggles to relax, often feeling tense and exhausted. They kind of solved their own problem right there, even when there's no immediate reason to. So she's worrying for no reason. Not quite sure that's a disorder. However, here's a meatier one. Obsessive compulsive disorder. Recurrent intrusive thoughts, obsessions, paired with repetitive behaviors, compulsions, performed to reduce anxiety. These actions can interfere with daily functioning. Example: Alex washes his hands multiple times a day, fearing contamination, even though he knows it's excessive. The compulsion takes hours each day, disrupting his work and social life. But is it really disrupting his work and social life? It's his choice to wash his hands. Borderline personality disorder, BPD. Characterized by unstable moods, relationships, and self-image, with a fear of abandonment and impulsivity. Sarah's relationships are often turbulent. She feels intense love for people one moment, but when they do something small to upset her, she can feel abandoned and lash out. Change of plans. Change of plans. Grace. I think I've already reread this in some episode. Or maybe I haven't, I don't know. Who the fuck knows? So this was the first letter. Back in February of last year. Back when I was still actually writing, not just talking. I'm trying to remember why I started all this. I guess either this is a true story or it isn't. All or nothing. February 11th, 2024. Dear question mark. I'm sorry we have not met and I do not know your name. As a placeholder, I will call you Grace. If your name is actually Grace, then it's a coincidence. I'm not a psychic. Maybe I am. I like the concept of grace. That's why I like the name. Simple elegance. Also, I have zero memory of anyone named Grace in my past. To me, the name is free of negative or positive association. I'll try again. February 11th, 2024. Dear Grace. Hello, my name is David, and this is my story. I was inspired by a YouTuber named Vagabond Rob to write this letter to you. Somebody who will one day enter my life. Rob is a homeless Canadian man who documents his daily life on YouTube. I watch his channel and support him any way possible. Please note, if you, the reader, not Grace, have extra cash and feel like donating to Rob's situation, please do. However, I understand if you don't, for whatever reason. Charity is a choice, not a requirement. I think his site is actually down now, but... The reason I like and support Rob's channel is honesty. Rob is completely open in his videos. He uses limited jump cuts. He films right after any situation arises in his life, creating videos that clearly display the emotions he felt at the time. He's opening his heart and telling his story, the good, the bad, and ugly. My goal is the same, but for different reasons. Rob telling his story could provide him an income from YouTube and a way off the street. The more honest he is, the more followers he attracts, and the greater the odds some will contribute. I understand. I know I have two wills in there, but I don't need additional income. I would like extra money, but not by working for others, not even YouTube. I can't follow their rules or anyone's rules. I'm too old, and although I live a simple life, it's all I need and want. I live by my rules now, and one day I'll live by rules set jointly by you, my wife, and myself. This guy sounds a little desperate, Grace. What I, what I would like, what I would like is a wife / partner / whatever you want to label it. My goal is to provide you all the information you may need to make that decision beforehand, before ever meeting me. Rob is my inspiration to write honestly without unnecessary fluff and provide you with a history of my past. Although to be fair, there's nothing scandalous about my life. I'm not confessing to crimes here. Well, not yet. I'm telling my story to anyone who will listen, but I really only care about you, Grace. I want you to read this story, but I'll share this with others. It's as it's the BBD, as it's the only way to find you. That sounds heavy. It's not my intention. Although this letter isn't funny, I'm at heart a comedian. I believe it's my job to make fun of every part of my life until both I and those listening find it hilarious. Funny how in 1 year you can go from wanting to be a comedian to being the world's greatest telepathic comedian. It's a joke, Grace. I'm not an actual comedian, Grace. Well, I haven't got on stage yet. I have my material prepared, and every day I feel more confident to get on stage, but I've yet to stand up. I didn't actually have that much material prepared back then. Wrote all that this summer, but I'm ready in my mind. I have 7 venues lined up, one for every day of the week, but for some reason my body says not yet. I'm not sure why. However, there's no rush. The world doesn't end if I don't do stand-up tonight, but I really have no other interest in life currently. Maybe I'm addicted to the concept of performing on stage, not the actual action. I'm not sure, Grace. But once I do get on stage, I'll post any video I take here. I'll provide you with the same insight Rob provides his viewers. Until then, if you'd like to read or listen to my humor, please review any other posts on this site. They're all meant to be funny, but if you don't find them funny, I understand. I won't be offended if you stop reading now. If you prefer short form, my Twitter X accounts are at Ricky's God and at Elon's God. Both accounts are intended to be satirical, but I suspect others find them confrontational, whatever that means. I suspect other users find them confrontational, whatever that means. If you do find my sense of humor funny, or at least tolerable, please continue reading. I like Rob's honesty, but also his consistency. He posts daily no matter what. A shitty day or a good day, it doesn't matter. Either way, his true story and true emotions are displayed. This is not an act, or if it is, he's one hell of an actor, and the CBC should hire him. I'm not homeless like Rob. I was close a few years ago. I don't have to find odd jobs in Kijiji to eat and provide myself shelter. I don't have to write or publish anything on this site daily or otherwise. I have no obligations to my readers, as I have no readers. I have no requirement to get up in the morning and get out of bed. I can stay asleep as long as I like, every single fucking day. Rob cannot. I have no excuse for not writing and posting anything, on Substack daily. I write in my head constantly, from the moment I wake up until I eventually fall asleep. It's all I do. But I'm not sharing everything. I posted 6 movie ideas last year, but I wrote 12. The missing 6 didn't make my personal cut for quality. This was a mistake, Grace. Like Rob, I should have posted everything, regardless of perfection. I do admit my mistakes, Grace. Maybe not the day I realized my error, but eventually. This year I won't make the same mistake. I'll publish anything I find entertaining or important, including a continuation of this letter, no matter how long it gets. Guess the question, Grace, is this letter still in my subconscious? Since I don't technically remember it. It seems like I've been telling the same story for over a year now. If you're wondering why I don't need extra cash, Grace, it's not because I'm wealthy. If you're wondering why I don't need extra cash, Grace, it's not because I'm wealthy. I'm not. I live on what I receive from the Canadian pension plan. I turned 60 this year. It's not much, but it provides me with room and board in a shared house. For now, it will suffice. Like Rob's limited use of jump cuts, I'm not going to over-edit these posts, Grace. I'm not sure I can produce daily like Rob, but I have absolutely no excuse not to. If we do get married in the future, and I'm in this situation again, please kick me in the ass, Grace. Tell me to write. Just realized it's 3:45, and the open mic for today is at 4 p.m. I won't be going, but I think my first open mic will be at this location. It's the only place where the start time is before 8 p.m. And part of my problem getting on stage is I'm normally tired as fuck by then, and I want to go to sleep or kill the night watching YouTube and Netflix. It doesn't matter. I have no excuse. I could have gone to the open mic first and wrote this letter second. I didn't. It's almost like a different person wrote this. It's all good. I can wait until next week to embarrass myself on stage. In the spirit of Rob-inspired honesty, I should note, Grace, this was not my first plan to attract a wife. Originally, my plan was to perform stand-up, become good enough to get noticed, and then hope the woman of my dreams comes to me. A solid plan, which I have made several jokes about, which are extremely funny. Grace. However, I realize, although all my comedy is based on my life, it's massaged to make me look good, even if I did something idiotic. All the jokes I write about myself are based on real events, but I remove the sad parts of those events, the parts of the story I don't want to remember, or am embarrassed about. I have no reason to be embarrassed. If Rob can share his story, I can share mine. If I'm inspired by Rob's story, maybe I'll inspire someone else with my story. Probably not. Or not. But if I don't share, I'll never know. So I'll share. If my words are not perfect, so be it. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to edit the truth. Either way, thanks for listening, Grace. Not sure what to do, Grace, so I'm just going to keep reading these letters. The DSM-5 stuff Doesn't seem to be working for me. Even though last night I thought of lots of funny stuff. However, I'd like to think, Grace, that before February 14th, 2025, we'll be in this room recording one of these together. There are 2 mics, 2 chairs, technically 4 chairs. February 14th, 2025. Before then. Dear Grace, today's Valentine's Day. However, I know nothing about you, so the concept of writing something romantic is odd. If I knew you, I would. But since I don't, anything I could possibly say would be generic in a pathetic attempt to attract the biggest audience. Also, I think all the holidays are bullshit. I'm okay with playing the game for kids, but deep down, you should understand my motivation. On the other hand, if I did know you and could write something that touched you, I would, today or any day of the year. However, I don't know you from Eve, so happy Valentine's Day, for whatever that's worth. I hope by next year on this day, we are together, married, and if you're interested, with a baby on the way. Starting to think that these letters are still stuck in there. January 16th. Maybe I should just book this room for Valentine's Day. Grace, I'm not saying wait until then, I'm just saying give us something to do on that day. Especially if we're married with a baby on the way. I think that would be a pretty interesting podcast to record on Valentine's Day. Assuming my junk still produces seed. How's that for romance? Anyway, I added the time to these letters. It's important to me for research. I notice my creative/incentive varies throughout the day. I'm looking for a pattern. "5:43 p.m. When I watch Rob's videos, Grace, I note how close my day-to-day life is to his in some ways, but definitely not in others. Rob is surviving hourly, looking for work and making videos for people like me looking for inspiration. Below is a typical day in my life, Grace. It's similar to Rob's in that I normally go to the dollar store or library consistently. Different in that I have a safe place to go when I'm done. I don't have to worry about where my next meal will come from. Plus I can shower or use the washroom whenever I need or want. With my day, I wake up and I wish I could go back to sleep for eternity. When I realize this is impossible, I review my options for the next 24 hours. My choices are the same every day. I can get up and write immediately. I can write later, or I cannot write at all. This morning I woke up at 11:30 a.m. I walked to 7-Eleven for an energy drink. I woke up again and began writing. I didn't get far, as you can see by the timestamp. In fact, after writing for about an hour, I watched some of Joe Rogan's interview with Will Storr and then had a nap. Don't remember who Will Storr is. 7-Eleven doesn't exist anymore. A lot of things can change in a year, Grace. I either like or need fresh air to wake up and feel like I'm part of this world. Rob sleeps near a highway and hears a noise all night long. He can't turn it off. I live beside a transit station, a roadway, the commercial train tracks, a river with tugboats, and a bridge that once a day somebody has an accident driving over, and the entire fucking police force, fire department, and paramedics arrive with sirens blazing. It's kind of interesting now to see where all the jokes come from. Grace? Unlike Rob, I can turn it all off by closing my window. 80% less noise immediately, and other distractions like music or Netflix, or even my fridge, is enough to drown out the non-stop noise outside. A bit long-winded, Grace. If that's not enough, I have the option of earplugs to remove the final 20% and live in perfect silence, which is how I sleep, with earplugs shoved deeply into my ears. If I lived in Rob's camp, I wouldn't want the silence. I would want my brain to notice any noise other than the traffic for my safety. I'm not sure Rob does that, or uses earplugs. I'll ask him in the next video, and let you know, Grace. When I wake up in the morning, or afternoon, I think, just a few more hours. Then I listen. If I can hear the road noise through the earplugs with the window closed, I'm screwed. I'm awake and it's unlikely I'll get back to sleep. If I'm lucky and I don't hear the traffic, I quickly realize I have to use the washroom, which I do as fast as possible before attempting to return to sleep. I think I might as well end this today, Grace, because clearly I've told you everything 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different ways. And the only recording I want to do is with you, not to you. So if you're using this for sleep, hopefully this will last a while. However, I have options. I'm free to do as I please. Rob has a bit more stringent routine to maintain his daily survival. Based on his videos, Rob's routine seems to be get up, go to the gym to shower, then the library to send out resumes and recharge phone battery, get supplies from dollar store, return to camp. Maybe not in exact order, but in general. I mentioned in my previous letter about nearly being homeless. For a couple of years, I stayed with friends and relatives. It's difficult not to feel guilty for intruding or being in the way when someone has kindly offered you a couch to sleep on. You know, situations where I'd get up early, I could barely sleep anyway, and head out to the coffee shop or a library for the day to write. In that environment, I was forcing myself to write by remaining out of the house as long as possible and intruding as little as possible. To be fair, the environment forced me to write more than I write now. Unfortunately, the writing seemed forced, unlike now. Maybe one day, Grace, I'll share those words with you in private. You have a whole bunch of notebooks you can read, Grace, if you can read my writing. Although to be fair, ChatGPT can read my writing, so Just take pictures and run it through that. It's a lot faster. Anyway, I think when I first moved into the place I'm living now, I continued that rush mentality. Wake up, shit shower, shave, and then almost run to Starbucks across the bridge, or take the train to the library. I shouldn't have said I was nearly homeless in my first letter, Grace. It's true, but was by choice. I've worked full-time my entire life, either for myself or others, but I've always been employed. Never rich, but always comfortable enough to have a house and a car. Okay, there was a time in my 20s where I used EI like an universal basic income and spent my days photographing nature, but EI is employment insurance. I don't know if they still call it that. After my child graduated high school, and for a few years before COVID, I traveled around Canada and the USA, mostly Canada. I had no fixed address. The few possessions I owned, I either gave away or stored at my ex-wife's house. At the time, I was working for a software company from home, so I simply made my home the road and began traveling. They didn't know and they didn't care once they found out, as the little company only met in person once a year anyway. Used anyway a lot, Grace. Hopefully you find that cute and endearing. Hopefully you find all of this shit cute and endearing, or I'm fucked. It was a perfect scenario for a while, Grace. Airbnbs were cheap and easy to book, and only slightly more than the rent I was paying for years. I started with the car, but eventually discovered everything I wanted to do in any city in Canada was accessible by foot or public transportation, and dumped the car. Reduced all my belongings to one backpack and continued to move. All of my belongings, why can't I say belongings, Grace? All of my belongings still fit in one backpack, Grace. Someone called me a minimalist, but I have no philosophy. My current possessions are all I've had for years, and all I'll need for years, except underwear and a Hasselblad, or two, and a Canon, or two. I'm rambling, Grace. The short story is the road was great, but only because I was working and could afford the same luxuries. To continue the lifestyle, I was forced to work, but at some point, I forgot when, it became less about the travel and more about the words. I wanted to write, but I wanted to write alone, free from the influence of others, including any form of boss. My solution was to trade in the stable long-term income I currently had for part-time contract gigs that could dry up at any moment and leave me penniless. It's actually a pretty good joke. Did I mention I'm not rich? I don't have any savings, Grace. What a catch, I know, especially on Valentine's Day. I'm tired of this part of my story, Grace. I'll explain more another day, but needless to say, my plans did not go according to plan. Almost, but no. On a different note, one thing I did learn on the road was how to lose weight. Since this is as much a confession as a letter to you, Grace, I used to be fat. Really fat. It was my choice to become fat. It wasn't glandular, or medication, or any of the countless excuses people use. I know why I ate too much or crappy food. It was my choice. At some point in my travels, I discovered keto and fasting. This was still when everyone thought your heart would instantly explode if you ate a tablespoon of butter or fat. This is clearly not true, Grace, as I've lost over 140 pounds on keto, and I ate a ton of fat. Buckets of fat, Grace. To be precise, unflavored coconut oil was my primary source of calories. I only ate meat and cooked in it. Coconut oil, drenched. If you're a vegan, Grace, you may want to skip this part. Once I realized keto works, and once my doctor confirmed my blood work was normal, I ate nothing but meat and fat for 6 months. I went all in and didn't turn back until I dropped from 285 pounds to 160 pounds. Not only did it worked perfectly. No excess skin and no stretch marks. Well, maybe there are some on my ass. I don't know. I don't look at my butt. Here we go. All the way back to that perfect ass, isn't it, Grace? Full circle. I guess you've caught me in a lie. I don't actually look at my ass, so I don't know if it's perfect or not. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have stretch marks, but maybe it does. You'll have to let me know. I'm not sure why I'm sharing this story, Grace. Exactly. I put some of the weight back on. I don't consider myself fat, but I notice when my belly gets in the way. At some point in my keto journey, I stopped feeling hungry in the morning. I use this to push myself to fast longer and longer each day. I'm actually kind of interested in what I said a year ago all of a sudden. I kept no food in whatever place I was staying, same as I do now. I'd wake up and work from the Airbnb or go to a coffee shop and write while pretending to work. Then at the end of the day, find a grocery store for my nightly meal/feast. Whatever I bought, I would consume that evening. Even if I forced myself to eat too much, I'd rather be extra full than have the temptation to eat the leftovers in the morning or the middle of the night. Eventually I stopped feeling hungry in the evening, or was too lazy to go out and buy food and would skip eating for a day, then a couple of days, then a week, and then finally a month. I didn't eat for a month, Grace. It felt great. I quickly learned that few people in life understood why, and no matter how I tried to explain it, I couldn't. So I gave up and quit trying. I attempted to write a book about it, but I guess it's good that I read this off my Substack because it forces me not to edit. I believe keto has been proven safe now. I know it still works for me, and anytime I feel my belt tightening, I spend a week or two on keto, and I don't have to buy new pants. Probably a joke in there somewhere. I think if I was on the Serengeti and starving, forced fasting, the instinct would be to find a path to an animal I can kill, or a plant I can eat. I noticed when fasting, Grace, an intense desire not to find food, but to find a better path in life. I wasn't on the Serengeti. I had money. I could end my fast any time by ordering a pizza. Nothing prevented me. But I think my brain went into survival mode. Not for food, but for a career. The equivalent to food. I knew my existing employer wouldn't last a lifetime. I liked the paycheck, but disliked working for others. I always have. I could work for other people, but it's always the same ending. I quit. Or maybe I was delirious from not eating for weeks, Grace. Either way, it was clear to me I couldn't work for others the rest of my life, so I quit my job, and through a series of choices, was nearly homeless. I'm not. I'm fine now, and I have CPP the rest of my life. End of story. Except you, Grace. Where are you? What are you doing? And when will we meet? I have yet to explain my day, Grace, and now I'm over it. I'll try again in the next letter. So far, I think it's safe to say this is the worst dating profile ever. No photos, just a story about a broke old man with no prospects. Lucky you, Grace. On the other hand, if you get my humor, then it doesn't matter. You'll understand. Thanks for reading, Grace. Well, I guess I'm on a roll now, so we'll just keep going. To my future wife, Grace, Part 3, Broken Hand and Open Letter, February 15, 2024. 4:20 p.m. Dear Grace, normally about this far into a project, like this letter to you, I give up. I move on to my next concept and forget my current great idea. This time it's different. Every time I see a video of Rob alone in his tent, it pisses me off that I'm unable to help, either directly with cash or views on YouTube. The only way I can help Rob or others is to succeed in something myself. Writing these letters to you seems like a success. I don't know why, Grace. Maybe if I don't give up, they'll come together in a story that eventually someone will notice. Wishful thinking there. Or not. Either way, I'm getting it out of my system, Grace. Thank you for your part of the inspiration. On the other hand, I'm confused. I love some aspects of YouTube, but I fail to understand why some channels like Rob's remain slow to gain followers when similar channels thrive, go viral, and help the individual in need. When I first started this Substack page, Grace, I used an electronic voiceover for my movie ideas. I hated the sound of my own voice, and still do. I'm not officially mute, Grace, but I rarely speak. In 2023, I had one consensual conversation with my kid that lasted an hour, and a 10-minute forced interaction with the doctor at the hospital when I accidentally broke my hand. The rest of the year and part of 2022, might as well just add all of 2024 in that too. I spoke to nobody longer than it takes to order a cup of coffee. I could have ordered the coffee online, I suppose, but I'd like to check and see that I could still speak at least once a day. I could speak to myself outside. Everyone is wearing earbuds, so I wouldn't look crazy, and it would exercise my voice. But I like to read out loud, not babble out loud. I suppose I could practice my stand-up routine as I walk, but I think I mentioned before, I'm not going to practice out loud. I'm going to go on stage and take my chances. If I'm correct, I will have saved a ton of time by not practicing. If I fail, what's the difference? The odds of failing the first time doing an open mic are probably 99%. I made up that number, Grace. I didn't Google it because nobody cares about the failure rates of comics, except comics, and none of them are scientists. I spoke a lot when I broke my hand. I even remembered swear words from childhood, which is appropriate in my case, as I live a bit like a child, Grace. I do force myself to record the voiceover. If there is a certain truth in the spoken word when it's your own written word spoken aloud. I think, Grace, authors used to read their entire book to audiences who couldn't afford to buy the book. I may be wrong about this fact. I don't like to stop and Google, but I do believe this occurred. I'm not sure I could do this. Once I've recorded my letter to you, Grace, and hit publish, I'm not interested in repeating those words. Unless it's a year later, apparently. Hunter S. Thompson typed out The Great Gatsby to learn how to write like the masters. I believe it's possible to do the same simply through reading, but only if you read one person exclusively. I tried to learn how to write first-person active voice by reading every Dean Koontz novel written in that style. It worked to a degree, but in the end all I wanted to write was the same weird shit he creates. I learned a skill, but was enchanted by his stories and wanted to duplicate them instead of create my own. My solution, Grace, was to reprogram my brain by sitting on a park bench a few hours a day and smoking a little weed, or a lot, and reading passages from my personal handwritten notebooks out loud. I tried the same technique at home in my room, but it doesn't work. I'm concerned someone will hear my words through the door, and at the most out of context time possible. Yeah, it's a joke I've missed there, Grace. At the park, I'm free to scream if I like. I don't, but I also don't feel shy, like at home. Around the time I stopped speaking, Grace, I stopped all reading, except as described above. I realized to have my own voice, I can have no influence in my head, and the greatest influencers in my past life were all authors. The collective group of them shaped my writing. But if I continued to read any single one of them, I would lose my individuality. To be clear, Grace, I'm not saying I'll never read another book. I will when I'm ready. My discovery was, if I read my words out loud and record myself, I hear which sentences sound like me and which are influenced by others. As long as the majority sounds like me, I'm happy. I'll publish. I do miss reading, but my solution is closed captions. I turn them on everywhere. I read the screen as much as listening to the dialogue. For whatever reason, probably because I'm also watching the action, I don't absorb the style of the writer. Or maybe because I'm done trying to write movie ideas. Or maybe because TV movies are often written by groups of writers. I'm not sure, Grace. Any ideas? Anyway, without the masters like Ayn Rand on my bookshelf/Kindle, I'm left to think of my own. It's taken a year to clear their influence. Rob's videos are truthful and honest. It's all the inspiration I need, and I'll get a new story or two from Rob daily. Plus, it's easier than trying to push through reading Atlas Shrugged for the umpteenth time. Pretty much an inside joke there, but I'm not sure if you've read it, Grace, but a book of that size and magnitude could not be a success today. But a book of that size and magnitude wouldn't be a success today. It should be, but unless the concept can reduce to a TikTok video, it has no hope. Yeah, Atlas Shrugged to TikTok. I like it. Forgot completely about that one. "8:33 p.m. When I still worked and was eating a ketogenic diet, I splurged, Grace. I ate tons of chicken wings, steak, eggs, cheese, and my favorite, dried sausage. I'd carry around sticks of them in my backpack and gnaw them like a caveman throughout the day. However, now I do poor man keto, consisting of Walmart hot dogs boiled in coconut oil. $5 for a package of 24 of the lowest quality wieners possible, but it still works. I don't have the variety of meat I had, but I used different spices and hot sauces to keep it interesting. Over the last couple of years, I've probably bought 100 packages of these hot dogs, Grace. I realize that's at least 2,400 wieners I've put in my mouth recently. If I was gay and doing that on OnlyFans, I'd be rich. That's a pretty good joke. I should have had that in my back taxes. God damn it. 9:15, here's my thought of the day for you, Grace. I think there should be an option for anonymous therapy, AT. I see two scenarios. One where not only is it anonymous, it's held in complete darkness so neither party sees each other. Or in an extremely plain/sterile room with a divider to block the view. Why? I'm glad you asked, Grace. Actually, this goes all the way back to the hill. Grace, if you believe in that concept. Should have made a movie idea about this one. Hi, Grace. I thought about this more last night and fine-tuned my concept of AT. Patient-driven therapy might be a better description, but AT sounds better than PDT. With AT, the patients can choose the environment they are most open to express their feelings. With AT, the patient can choose the environment they are most open to express their feelings. As an example, Grace, my environment would be a completely blacked out room with two comfortable chairs about 5 feet apart. Boy, I really don't use commas the first time I write. But I guess this is a letter, Grace, so it doesn't really matter. A psychiatrist and I would be let into the room blindfolded, and at different times we would never visually see the other person. An assistant would indicate to us when the room was empty of others, and then would remove our masks and talk in complete zero-light darkness. Why? Good question, Grace. I like your questions. I hope one day you'll ask them to be in person on a podcast in a library. Wouldn't that be nice, Grace? After we meet, Grace, I'll probably never go to a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, /school counselor, /anyone for advice ever again, unless you drive me nuts, Grace. Please don't. Please be more normal than I am. I'll play the crazy, you be the straight man. But please be female. However, I have gone to therapy in the past, and in my case, I found the professionals completely unable to remember my file from appointment to appointment. I understand they have multiple clients, but for me, it's not an excuse. I'm only interested in sharing my story with someone who can remember it, without having to review his notes to refresh his shitty memory about my boring-ass story. Not for me, Grace. There are intelligent individuals who can remember and use their brain power. If I'm ever in need, this is who I want, regardless of how many degrees are on their wall or how fancy their office is. I want someone who remembers me, my story, and not using my face or my clothes or my body language as part of the diagnosis. I know who I am and how I look and how I act. It has nothing to do with my story, which I'm telling you, doctor, to help me, the patient. Fuck body language, Grace. Too many people overread everything, and I'm a perfect example, as I show my emotions on my face, unless I remember to be stoic. If I'm going to an appointment with a doctor or somebody, I automatically go into flat face mode. Unfortunately, when the meeting gets heated and goes off the rails, my face gives my emotions away. Even when I write at Starbucks Grace, I notice my facial expressions changing during emotional parts of the story. I've cried at Starbucks Grace, but luckily nobody noticed. Starbucks is basically anonymous. Occasionally you'll find an excellent barista who remembers your regular order, but normally the clerk looks at you like you've never seen them before, even if they're there every day at the same time. Hello, how may I help you? Like a robot. Anyway, for me, my choice is a room as close to an isolation chamber as possible, with no outside visual influences. In fact, if I could, I'd do the session in 2 float tanks with an audio interface between them. If I trusted the professional counseling me, I may let them record the session audio, but on the other hand, I don't want to give them a crutch at all. I let them force focused on me, the patient, which I believe Grace is what they should be doing. In this dark room, and without ever seeing the person attempting to help me, I'd be comfortable talking about nearly anything. What about you, Grace? Too creepy? Doesn't sound any creepier than the concept of the hill. I realize this sounds a bit like the confessional in the Catholic Church, and it's probably because I was raised Catholic. However, I have no problem with the concept of confession. I have a problem with it being anonymous, with it not being anonymous, and creepy priest using this information to whack off at night. It's a good joke if I could ever get to it. I realize this sounds a bit like the confessional in the Catholic Church. And it's probably because I was raised Catholic. However, I have no problem with the concept of confession. I have a problem with it not being anonymous, and creepy priests using this information to walk off at night. Take away the sins and make it a place where you can bitch and complain anonymously about your life for 15 to 30 minutes a week to another human being without seeing judgment in their eyes, and maybe it's a pretty good system. Maybe some people would come back to an anonymous church. Plus, it's easier than trying to work out your frustrations on Twitter. I would know. But the concept of pretending the priest is anonymous is stupid. But the current concept of pretending the priest is anonymous is stupid. He's not, unless he's an idiot who can't recognize a voice without a face attached. Unlikely. Anyway, Grace. My concept is the extreme. Many people are fine with the current environment offered and wouldn't be forced to an odd situation like I'm describing. However, why couldn't this be an option? What is wrong with talking in the dark if both parties agree? Who cares as long as the patient receives help? Also, the patient can choose their therapist by reading anonymous reviews, or they can be matched via AI by entering their story anonymously into the system via voice or written word. The more they share, the more accurately the AI can provide a match. We'll move the idea about that one. I guess we're going over an hour today, Grace, but this might be the last one, so who cares? Anytime the patient is unhappy with their choice of professional, they can dump them, then move on. Since it's anonymous, no hard feelings on either side. The goal is to improve the mental well-being of the client. Any professional interested in helping others should understand. There's some online sites that are close to this, where you can simply say you don't have a webcam and do audio-only therapy, and I like those options too. I'll think about 18 more, Grace, and get back to you. I'm getting closer to writing you a letter a day, Grace. I feel like I'm in an old war movie where I'm writing you not knowing if you'll ever receive it. It's fun, since I don't actually have to worry about dying in battle and I have no idea if you will read this, Grace. I have nothing to lose, everything to gain by trying. Again, like Rob with his videos, he earns nothing yet, but continues to post. Or maybe I'll never die, Grace. I'm in good health, too good for my age. Other than one hearing issue and sleeping like a cat, I'm healthy enough to make it to the singularity, where immortality is possible. Assuming I don't get hit by a bus. I should probably describe my physical appearance, Grace, but I don't care about yours, so why? I mean, if you care, if you have a huge mole on your face, like the lady I saw on the train yesterday, if you have that, please burn it off. But I don't need perfection, just normal. I don't remember the lady on the train. Maybe I lied. In my movie ideas, I lie and describe my character as an incredibly attractive middle-aged man. In truth, I'm mostly normal looking. Some would say I look a bit autistic. That's only because I use a backpack to carry my computer. It's logical, not autistic. Plus I shop daily. I need the backpack. Plastic bags are outlawed in BC. I'm normally looking with a bad haircut. What the fuck does that mean? I'm normally looking with a bad haircut. In fact, no haircut. I cut my own hair. I'm not against haircuts, just cheap. Once we get together, Grace, I'll splurge and get a trim. If my hair embarrasses you, if the rest of me and these letters don't embarrass you, I doubt my looks will. If you don't like my autistic backpack, then we can't be together. It's part of me. Once again, I'm sharing serious topics with you, Grace, and I should be writing jokes and preparing to get on stage. On the other hand, these letters force me to talk daily, which is what I need to do if I ever want to get to the comedy club. So thank you, Grace, whoever you are and whatever you're doing on this day. I will attempt to end these letters with at least one funny event in my life, or at least funny to me. I'm sure I'll offend half the readers. I don't care. If you're still reading this third letter, Grace, I doubt I've offended you. I mentioned I broke my right hand a few months ago. During the experience, I learned how stupid my left hand was. To be fair, untrained is a better word. I failed to train my left hand to be a backup for the right. What I first noticed, Grace, is it's impossible to wipe your butt when you can't bend your wrist. I could hold onto the paper with the 3 still available fingers, but I couldn't get the desk. I could hold the paper with the 3 still available fingers, but couldn't get to the destination while sitting on the toilet. I eventually realized that if I stood up, I changed the angle of attack, and I could manage with the right. Before I figured out that very simple solution, I gave the left hand a shot. First, I almost fell off the toilet when I lifted my left cheek instead of my right. I'd never done that before, and I didn't know the toilet seat was loose. Another missed joke. I nearly broke something more than a hand. Ha ha ha. Second, Lefty had no idea where the hole is. It was like he knew it was there, but never took the path before. I didn't know where to start. Technically, I was in control of my hand, Grace. I felt like I was clueless, or it was clueless. We felt around for a while until making contact, but then it was more like trying to grab the fecal matter than wipe my butt clean. It knew what it was after, but had no clue how to capture it gracefully. Grace. Maybe I'm crazy, Grace, because I found myself explaining to my left hand what to do. I told it to envision how the right hand does it and try again. It kind of worked, but 3 days later, after Lefty got his shit together and learned how to wipe, I realized the standing up trick and reverted to my right hand, retiring lefty permanently. I guess I thought you would think this is funny, Grace. I realize how shitty that story was, Grace, and how punny I write sometimes. Maybe I am autistic. Why would I share a story about crap to my future wife? It seems a bit odd. On the other hand, when we're married and have children, we'll have plenty of shit to deal with from the babies. It's endless. One final note, Grace. On my way to the park, there's some graffiti that says, "Linda, I love you forever." And every time I walk by it, I wonder, who is Linda? It's an old librarian name. Odd to be the subject of graffiti. I also wonder why. I assume he didn't use a comma after Linda. I think it's more impactful with the pause. What do you think, Grace? Which do you prefer? Yeah, I don't think I'm the guy to be giving out advice on commas. Grace, I will love you forever, or Grace, I will love you forever. Or Grace, I will love you forever. I'm tempted to add the comma for him, but used an odd color, a dirty pink. I don't think I could match it. I guess he used everything pink to be romantic, but... Do you wear pink, Grace? Did you wear a bright pink outfit at work for Valentine's Day yesterday? Assuming you work, Grace. Not that it matters if you work or wear pink. I love you either way. Just no moles. Thanks for listening, Grace. Thanks for listening, Grace. David.